Today, I want to talk about the common fears that some people may have if they're transitioning into self-employment or contracting, consulting, all of that kind of stuff there. Anything that requires you to be independent. Now, for me personally, when I did sort of like transition over, I didn't have like serious fear. I think the fear kicked in when I started, okay? And for those of you who are religious, for me personally, it felt like it was a bit divine. I'm not going to lie to you. I felt like God was speaking to me through essentially how I felt. I just had this strong, insatiable desire to leave because I knew that I had this trauma response. And actually, I felt quite positive about all of the stuff that I needed to do. Now, some may argue that, okay, it's because you asked questions to recruiters, contractors, all of these different types of people. But sometimes, and you will know this already, even if you get all the answers you need, sometimes you still don't feel ready. Okay, so I don't think it's just binary in that way or just bipartisan in that way. I do think it was higher than that. And if I am describing it as a God complex, God situation, then that's how I'm describing it. Whether I'm right or wrong doesn't matter because I'm in the industry right now. I believe that's right. Anywho, let's keep it moving. So with that in mind, sometimes we feel like if we're transitioning into this space, like people are not gonna think that we're good enough. Can I act like, how long can I keep up this act? I remember I was speaking to good contractor friend of mine, Lily. We both kind of started contracting around the same time. I think she may have started a bit earlier, and we're both like, I don't get it. I mean, how long are we gonna keep this up for? Like you doubt yourself a little bit because you're like, are you as good as people say you are, or as the market sort of like defines you as, so to speak? So in other words, like, am I gonna get another contract after this one? Is this it? Is the gig up? And yes, you will feel like that. You'll feel like that at least for the first year or so, maybe even longer than that. I had the same conversations with my friend Chima, same thing, And so with that in mind, it's like you have to reframe that mindset. Look, like there are millions of people out there who are looking for jobs, but there are also hundreds of thousands of different organizations who need those different people. And of those millions, a proportion of those people are contractors or people who have come into the market. You have to believe in your source. Like, if you're sensible, if you're the type of person I think you are who is watching this, you're not just gonna just jump in if you didn't have some level of value. Even if you didn't have, let's say for example, the accreditations or the education or the methodology on point, I believe, at least some of you watching this, you have the skills to position yourself in such a way where you could make it work. Because some of you believe that, yeah, I could do any job. So that same mentality needs to apply. There has to be an entrepreneurship-esque or consulting-esque sort of like approach. And what is a consultant, as I defined before? Somebody who strategically solves problems really well for a specific type of end client, utilizing different methodologies or frameworks to support their delivery, okay? Obviously, they don't just need to do that. They can go outside of the box, but the point being made is it's that type of person. So how do you overcome that fear? Number one, you need to speak to people. Speak to people who are in the same situation or who have been ahead. And they say, yeah, I had the same thing, but the reality is, it's not the case. Like you've obviously been here for X amount of time, so you obviously have value. The second thing is be aware of how the market operates. So I've spoken about, thriving times and trying times, okay? And so a thriving time may be when a certain political event happens, okay? A political party changes, there's more funding, there's more focus on your industry. Another sort of thriving time is anywhere between, again, January to like March, April. And you could say there's a mini thriving time between mid-September to like, I don't know, end of November. But then the trying times are in between because it starts to slow down and all that kind of stuff there. Are these strict rules? No, but they're things to bear in mind, okay? So think about all of that stuff. Also make sure that you're doing the basics right. Your CV is on point. It's ATS friendly. You've got someone to check it. You're using the PAR approach. So problem, action, and result. Again, all of this stuff mitigates against these different fears, okay? So bear that stuff in mind. The other thing is, the fear of the unknown. Okay, so what that really means is sometimes you may be in situations where you have no idea what's going to happen next. Okay, so this may be a situation where you're leaving your current place of employment, and you feel like you don't know what does this actually mean for my life? Okay, is there going to be sort of like opportunity in the market when it comes to the type of roles that I'm looking for? But you have to get comfortable with that. This is why this links to the other one, and I think all these different fears are all kind of like related, yeah. But essentially, you have to be in a position where you can only control what you control, and it's some of the stuff that I highlighted before. So control those things only. I spoke about finances in the previous video, but the fear of financial instability. So yes, everyone knows that there is the opportunity to potentially make more. Some people may say, oh, but actually you may not make more. It depends on how much, like what your day rate is and all that kind of stuff there. Yeah, that is true. If you earn a certain day rate and above, you're more likely to make more. And so this is very applicable to, again, the senior manager, also the middle manager, depending on what end of the scale they're at. Anyone below that, I think it may be a bit more difficult, potentially, okay? Depending on how old you are and what your life situation is. But what I can say is that, you know, there may be situations where actually you're cut from a contract and that's it. You're going to have to find a new one. So, like, what are you telling yourself in that situation? Are you just going to be in a state where it's like, oh, woe is me? You can't. And I'm not saying this in a difficult space. Like, I trust me, I've been there. I know exactly what it feels like. But you have to hustle. You have to hustle if that happens to you. Now, in many situations, you know, you may get a 3-month contract. They'll roll you over for another 3 months. Then they'll roll you over 6 months. And then there may be a decision to cut you. But usually these cuts come if the organization's not making enough money, if all the deliverables are met, which they usually aren't, or there is a funding round or some sort of political event that means that your sort of funding is capped, okay? And obviously contractors are the first to go. So you have to think about all of this stuff, but also plan ahead. And this is why you need savings. This is why you need to ensure, okay, you understand what the contingencies are. Is income insurance going to cover it? It may not, you know, because it may just cover like sickness and stuff. Also, are you comfortable getting into debt potentially? Okay, if none of these different things work, but you're in a situation where actually you're contracting, can you use a loan or a credit card or whatever it may be? Again, I wouldn't advise if you don't have to, but is that something you need to lean on? Can you rely on other people? This is worst case, by the way. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is how you mitigate against the financial instability element. There's also this whole fear of regret. Okay, so this is really centered around, have I made the right decision? Okay, let's think about this carefully. If you quit your role, let's say for example, you jump into contracting, it's taking you about 2 to 3 months to get your first contract, and you jump in and you start and you're like, I hate this. Why did I feel so uncomfortable? You can always find a new job. Now, it's almost like, how can you say that so candidly? What else can I say? Like, you're either going to have to find a new job or you find another contract. I was speaking to, I didn't speak to him physically, but it was in the comments. And one guy had been following my journey for the past 2 or 3 years on YouTube, me talking about contracting. And you can go back and watch the videos if you want, because I spoke about it quite a bit, amongst many other stuff. And he was like, he's been very inspired by what I was saying and all this kind of stuff. They never met this guy. And he said his first contract was terrible. And he jumped out of that contract and quickly found another one. He said it was the best decision that he made. That he didn't stop and he quickly found another one. He could have been like, nah, forget it. Why did I listen to this guy? All this kind of stuff. No one has to listen to me watching this. No one, not one person. This really comes down to you. This is decisions that you need to make based on your value system and what you're looking for your future. It may look like something else. Maybe contracting, the idea of it is triggering something else that you want to do in your life. Okay? Maybe it's just an interim step. But the point being made is it's for you to make that decision. So you can regret things, but you can resolve those regrets by doing something else. And if they're not fully resolved, then it's just something you're going to have to manage and deal with. And this is why you have to make the decision. and be confident in your decision. Will you be 100% confident? Probably not. But you can tell if you're more on the edge towards something as opposed to on the other side of it. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. What else is there? Yes. There's also this idea of, I guess, fear of being misplaced or judged or out of community. Okay. Contracting can be a lonely road. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, you don't necessarily have the community. You don't necessarily have, you know, people you can lean on or an organization you can lean on. It's just literally you. And so if you're not comfortable with that, you either, number one, have to find ways to mitigate against that by creating a sense of community. Or number two, be comfortable being by yourself. Okay, be comfortable being in solitude. I think having a balance between the two is always going to be beneficial for you. And if you're comfortable with self, then you have to face the demons that are attacking you mentally, potentially. But if you can face them head on, then you're in a situation where actually you're starting to unravel and overcome some of this stuff. And actually, it's just been all mind games. So again, these are all things that could happen and or will actually happen. But as long as you've thought about the worst case scenario and you've had mitigations against them, I think you'll be fine. And sometimes we lean into these fears a bit too much. We don't need to lean into that stuff. Sometimes we need to lean onto the side of I can and I will and I must. Let's not be delusional. Things can happen. But at the same time, we need to be encouraging and motivating by nature. And this is why you set yourself up with the right foundations. You ensure that you have the substance to provide the value that you can provide. And you do the basics correct so that you can allay against those fears. That's how you manage it. That's how you manage it. Okay. So hopefully this stuff makes sense. I guess there's one more I want to talk about. And there was a nice man who messaged me on LinkedIn. I'm yet to message him back. But essentially he was saying that, you know, I spoke to him based on a video I did a couple of days ago centered around transitioning into contracting and how it allayed some of his fears. And I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that sort of feedback. You know, there are some situations where if you're ready to go, but your manager's being a complete you know what, it may sort of like off-put you a little bit. And with all this stuff, you have to be an avid, creative, person of imagination. Use your imagination to solve these problems. What can I do? Like, think about it step by step. I know people talk about this whole idea of first principles. What is the next logical thing or next practical step I need to take given the circumstances and conditions that I'm in or the context that I'm in? Use that sort of thinking to help you get to the next step. That's all you need. You just need to think about the next step and that's it. So hopefully this has helped and given you some ideas around how you can manage this stuff. And again, are there any other fears that you may have that I've missed out? Anyway, if you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.